Yes, I knew that friends and enthusiasts wanted to organize an arrival ceremony, but I had no idea that it would be thousands of people who walked out of the arrival hall, and I was confronted. This and it just practically snatched me from the exit, because I knew at that moment that we had that Nigeria was ready for a new level of revolutionary politics. I also did not have a speech at the airport because I knew that the airport could have shut down. So we went into Lagos, followed by thousands of young people, until we got to California. California is actually one of my greatest heroes. We have all of you, young people, who are coming local government, who are coming from becoming senators, who are coming from becoming House of Representatives, better than all the lazy mediocre. Take it back now! Let's go now. Let's take it back now. That's not the town hall for Ibadan. When we got there, we just couldn't believe how many people were using the hall, which was supposed to take about 700 people. About 700 people sitting and like 300 people standing. And outside the hall, I heard 1,000 people waiting and had to leave in frustration when they couldn't get inside and hear me speak.
Well, I think we are very clear about what we are taking back, and we are very clear about where we are giving it. This is a movement that is taking back not only our resources, it's taking back our dignity, it's taking back our land, it's taking back our people, it's taking back our weak and making them strong, and it's taking back everything that we've lost and giving it back to the people. It's the people's.
Minister, it's great to see you. This is the minister of an outgoing regime. The Buhari regime will be kicked out of power on 2009 by the wish of the people of Nigeria. The people of Nigeria, your government has failed us. That is not a dream. No, sir. Nobody even heard about some of you in 2014.
Because you are inconsequential.
I am consequential because you came on power. You came to power on my back. On my back, on the back of young people who invested a lot of, who invested a lot of hope and aspiration.
You invest more than me.
The Nigeria of the future is for dreamers like me. Yes, it's going to be for dreamers like me. Thank you. To Abuja was the next leg of our town hall meeting, interaction and engagement with Nigerians. And it wasn't different. We arrived at the airport to a warm reception by young people who had waited for me at the airport.
We thought that he had integrity and the ability to run this country. But what he has done to us is so pathetic that one of his ministers yesterday or 2 days ago confronted me on the radio station and he said 75% of this country, Nigerian youth, are inconsequential. Our failure in Abuja today is a consequential takeover of the federal capital territory, is a consequential takeover of the 36 states of Nigeria, is a consequential takeover of the West African region, is a consequential takeover of Africa. And it is to restore the pride of the black man. We have figured it out. I don't want to waste too much of your time here because I know it's hot. I want to thank you for coming. I invite you tomorrow to our town hall meeting at Zenith Hotel in Abuja.
From there we went to Abuja for another town hall meeting.
But we have acres of manifestos that have been giving us promises. You can find them anywhere. We have leaders who lack capacity. We have people with analog thinking that are running our country.
Kind of political consciousness that you're seeing today amongst the young people who usually are complacent, they come from the context in which the stories are written, because they need very solid evidence to show that a story they've read is actually doing damage to society, either politically, culturally, socially, and every ramification that you can think. What about the love that they promised us? What about the care that they promised us? They have disappointed us. This country is broken today, and the people of Nigeria are broke. I do not believe that the people who are proposing restructuring are honest. And that's why the first restructuring that has to happen in Nigeria is an economic restructuring of the country, where people actually enjoy the resources of their country.
This is the first palace I've entering since I started campaigning 5 weeks ago. You have shown yourself to be a disruptor. You have disrupted the economic system in this country by putting away people who were thieves in our banking system. I also want to disrupt the political space in Nigeria. I am running to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2019. And I want to start
So we left Kano, drove again for several hours to Kaduna, and came to a town hall meeting at Arewa House. The interesting thing is that Kaduna city or state is a very polarized state. People from northern Kaduna and southern Kaduna are Christians and Muslims, and some cases they actually don't see eye to eye. But here it was in this hall, Arewa Hall. The hall was filled to the brim. Interestingly, by women. So in the middle of the hall you had the Christians, and to the left you had Muslims, and all of these people coming together because of one purpose, to rescue and take Nigeria back from the old divisive politicians that have destroyed the country.
So when we started this, they said we cannot go to Kano, that you dare not go to Kano because it's President Buhari's home. We came to Kano, we went there today, we went to see the emir. People were hailing us on the street. Please do not look back. Kaduna is going to happen if we join hands together. Assalamu alaikum. It's my pleasure. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum, sir. The Sahara Reporters publisher is now running for president. We are still working on a coalition of parties, but we've been going around. We have a bunch of parties that we're talking to. We want to form a model.
Why worry about a bunch of parties? Why not go to the regional party
Which is the difference? That's PRP. PRP. Okay, sir. Yes, now we are talking.
So we're just coming from Pennsylvania, like it is the place where you can find people along the rail line. It was coincidental that the only real way system in Nigeria was arriving at the time we got there. And I was like,
okay, so we are about to start. I think we need to bring the lights back on. At least some of them. So let's see how many which ones, if you switch it back off again, I'm trying to see. What's that looking like? Are you?
Yeah, I can
Is it too
see you.
dark? You can see.
Yeah.
Do we have any of those lights here?
Where? No.
Okay, we don't.
Oh, no.
But this is good enough.
This is good enough.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I can talk with that mic.
Sure. It's on if you want it.
Yes, good evening. I think these are the early birds that use the bike, in the traffic to beat the craziness that we have, the dysfunctionality that we have in Lagos. You're welcome again to the Business Roundtable with Sowore, and I want to assure you that tonight we're going to see a part of him that we have not seen before. We're looking at the most sensitive aspect of our economy, which is the middle class. When you look at a country like Nigeria, with a population that is majorly rife with youth in between the ages of 18 and 35, running into hundreds of, tens of thousands of, you begin to ask yourself, why are we not engaging? What is the plan of government, towards ensuring that they engage these people to, open up Nigeria for better? And then we'll begin to see or hear things like digitization of the middle class, cutting off of the middlemen, the youth are lazy, things that begin to show that the middle class are endangered and they are going to be wiped out. Previous administration before this one tried as much as possible to focus on agriculture, forgetting about the middle class. That's one of the things that pissed them off the most. This administration totally went for the jugular. They wanted to wipe out the entire middle class with unfavorable policies and the rest of them. And it will be wonderful to ask ourselves questions and what exactly is the plan of what should we be expecting from a new administration? What should we be expecting from somebody who is vying, to serve in the highest office in the land? What plans does he have for the middle class, for the working class, for the innovators amongst us? And that's one of the things we want to explore. We want to look at it across sector. We want to look at how we're going to job creation. It's not about creating a group of people who will be hailing government and taking money on a monthly basis, or they'll be deployed for election rigging or whatever. We're looking at actual plans, that we can actually run. Remember, you take it back, movement, or the AAC as a party, is not just a political party. The Take It Back movement, as it were, is a movement. So whether election is running or election has finished running, it goes on. In other words, if there's any plan that we ask that we're going to do, we continue to run those plans, whether the government of the day agree with it or not. Because it is about the future of coming generation. We are taking back our lives from politicians. We are taking back our lives from people who don't care about us but feed off our blood. So, in furtherance of this, I would like to invite to the stage and the podium Dr. Malcolm Fabi, the DG of Sowore Campaign 2019.
Thank you so much. We want to thank everybody for coming. And my name is Dr. Malcolm Fabi, as I was just introduced earlier. And before I speak, before I go on, I think it is only proper that we bring up to the stage the man that gave us the job of developing the policy overview that we're going to give you now. As we were told just now by Mr. Oshonya, what has happened with a lot of our past governments, in fact with all of our past governments, is that they have neglected not just the masses, they have also neglected the middle class. And no nation progresses when it neglects any part of its people. So what we want to do today is to provide Nigerians with an opportunity to understand the thinking behind the programs. When we started out with a number of unique ideas. We're glad to tell you that today a lot of those ideas that people thought were extreme are actually mainstream. When we said we were going to give people 100,000 naira minimum wage, people were apoplectic. Now it is mainstream. More than a couple of political parties, in fact, have picked it up. When we said ranching was the way to go, if we were to solve the farmer.
Dr. Malcolm Fabi, great thanks to Sega Wilson, a great friend of ours, Sega Link, for helping out to put this together. No thanks to Lagos for making it impossible for all the people that are supposed to be here tonight. I hope we make it because of the traffic jam that's associated with this city. It's an impossible city to live in or work in, as you guys know. As I said, we have some of the best plans to grow our Nigerian economy, to diversify it, and to create a real middle class, not a class left in the middle of nowhere, which is what we have now. And one of the three pillars of our economic agenda, or even our entire manifesto, was to ensure that we guarantee security to Nigerians. And when we talk about security, a lot of people think that we're talking about physical security alone. It's way beyond that. We are talking about what war might likely be war waged in the cyberspace. And it's a matter of time before that happens. So in any nation that is not prepared for that kind of security is incapable of securing its borders, because the next kind of security breaches we are going to be experiencing is such that your physical borders also cannot save you. And you know, beyond that, we have discussed something that is based on PowerPoint presentations, or those economic models that are not only outdated, but that the people who actually sent us those economic models have come to apologize that those economic models did not work and they are not going to work for us. So there must be something domestic about the intelligence that is driving our economic model. So what we're talking about is a new political economy, not political philosophy. I mean, not economic philosophy. And you guys had that conversation during the last debate. You know, when people were talking about highfalutin economic philosophy. And, you know, it took us just one argument to knock it out. That, you know, if you don't have power, electricity, you can't. Philosophy is useless. And After that is, of course, the restructuring of the country, and we are very clear that we will restructure this country on all levels. But the first restructuring that must happen in Nigeria is the restructuring of the economy and the restructuring of the politics in such a way that the people for whom restructuring is met, young people, are the ones driving the restructuring process. As it is today, if they call a restructuring meeting, you and I will not be allowed into the place. It's a meeting of, you know, well, you know, in America they call them cougars. You know, it's a meeting of people who claim to, who are old but want to pretend that they are young, or you know, they are romancing youthful ideas. So it's not going to work for us. And we have discussed health, education, agriculture, and tourism. And recently we started adding another T to it, which is technology, because all of this will be driven by technology. So we're here tonight to take you through our economic policy. One of the things we also have told people repeatedly is that we're not working alone. And that is why we have such an effective campaign. You know, we ran what can be referred to as a low-budget campaign, probably the lowest for the kind of impact we achieved between February last year and February this year. We've done this for a year, and you look at the budget, you will know that if you want to set up a low-budget airline, you better talk to us. If you want to set up a low-budget government, you better talk to us. You know, we have been able to demonstrate that whatever we get as a new government, we'll be able to manage it to achieve the most, even when we have the least. That's what we did and demonstrated with our campaign, the Take It Back, our movement, and our party. As we speak today, we are going into election in 4 days' time, and our political party account still has 3,600,000 naira. We haven't touched a dime in our political party. We've been raising money through the presidential campaign account to run all activities, and we raise money on a daily basis. We spend and we have left, and we do great things. Traveling to 34 states across Nigeria, traveling in almost 7 countries. You know, we went to pretty much every continent to campaign to people, both at home and in diaspora. We did over 200 events, and we spent so far less than 120 million naira in a year. Yes. That is probably what the PDP spent today in the Lagos rally that I held failed spectacularly. They probably spent even more than that. So, without much ado, let me hand you over to Dr. Malcolm Fabi, who will take us through the digital presentation of what our economic blueprint is looking like. Whatever you're seeing here is just an icing on a real cake. And we've always promised that whenever we are sharing the national cake again in Nigeria, the celebrants will be there. Before now, they are always sharing the cake without the celebrant. Thank you so much. And good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much. The next President of the Federal Republic. Can you please get it back to some clarity?
You take it back.
Take it back. Take it back. So, over the next maybe 30 to 45 minutes, what I'll do is I'll take you through the economic programs of the African Action Congress and the manifesto of the Sowore 2019 campaign. When Sowore made the decision to run, the first thing he did was he made a couple of phone calls. I don't know what number I was in the list of people he was calling, but he made a call. And every person he called very quickly began calling one another because we were incredibly excited. In my generation, and for those of us that are in the youthful generation, I think if there's one person that has exemplified courage, consistency, capability, it is Sowore. I got to know him 30 years ago as an undergraduate at the University of Lagos. In fact, I had the distinct honor of becoming Students' Union president after him. Those were massive shoes to fill. And when you've known somebody for 30 years and you've known their consistency, well, we started as activists. Many of us went into other careers, consulting, academia. But even when he went into business, his business was the business of activism. He established a company called Sahara Reporters, which right now is one of the most recognizable Nigerian brands. It has been syndicated on BBC, CNN. There's no global organization that does not know who or what Sahara Reporters is. So he has demonstrated over time that he is not only a consistent person and that he has integrity, but he's also incredibly sound from an economic perspective. He has run a business, he continues to run that business. And over the time that he has run that business in 2006, there are many businesses that have started and died in this country. He continues to thrive. So when he made the call, what he wanted was for us to put together a policy team. And we immediately pulled that team together. Our policy team had well over 20 people, all of them global experts. In my case, my expertise comes from management consulting. I work with a company called McKinsey. It's a pretty well-known management consultancy firm. I attended the University of Lagos. I have a PhD from Cambridge. I've worked both in engineering as well as in economics. And I've also spent time as a visiting professor at the Lagos Business School, where I used to teach marketing strategy almost about 10 years ago now. And so we put a team together. It was a global team and it had experts in every area. And Sowore told us he wanted three things in his economic policy. He wanted to ensure that there was security, not just security as he explained in terms of the safety of persons, but security in terms of, so think about food, he wanted food security. Think about social welfare, he wanted to make sure that there was security from that perspective for Nigerians. He wanted sustainability. What he asked for were programs that did not just create things, but programs that created things that could sustain themselves. So if we build a road, it must be a road that we can maintain. Whether that maintenance means that at the time we're conceiving of it, the way we conceive of how it should be built, the way we conceive of how it should be managed, should be rolled into the plan itself. And finally, he said he needed self-sufficiency. That at the end of 4 years, what he wanted to see was a situation in which Nigeria was self-sufficient, where we are no longer a nation that produces 2 million barrels of oil a day and imports 300,000 barrels of refined products, when we have 4 refineries that have a capacity of almost 450,000 barrels. So those were the three things he said he wanted to see in any plan we came up with. And it was a very iterative process. So there were a lot of conferences, we met physically a number of times, there were intense debates about how to move forward. But eventually what we ended up with were 10 agenda items. Nigeria has a lot of problems. But what we found, so the first thing we did was we did some polling. I mean, we had an intuition for what some of those challenges were, but we also went out and engaged with the Nigerian people to find out exactly what those critical areas were. And this is what we call SPICER heat. So when you look at each of those, so SPICERHEAT, it spells out SPICER heat. It's a program, a 10-point agenda that deals with security, power, infrastructure, corruption, and dealing with it decisively. The economy and jobs, how do we grow jobs? Restructuring, how do we structure Nigeria so that it works for all of its people? Healthcare, education, agriculture, and tourism. So as you notice, so one of the first things we did was we looked very critically at the issue of power. Normally power would be considered as part of infrastructure. But Nigeria's power problem is so terrible that we thought we would be doing it injustice if we rolled it up into power. As you know, today we have a Minister of Power who doubles as the Minister for Housing and who doubles as the Minister for Works. So he's a jack of all trades and a master of none. So the first thing we did is we looked at power. So what do you see here? is on the left over here is a measure of the wealth of countries. On the right, down here, is a measure of their use of power. Anytime you see a line going that way, what it means is the more power you have in your economy, what happens? The more wealth you have, period. The more power you have in your economy, the more wealth you have. So the first thing we did is we did what consultants would call benchmarking. And what benchmarking does is we took different countries and looked at how much power those countries used per person. Anytime you see per person, it's per capita. So per capita in economics is just per person. So here is Norway. Every year, the average person in Norway uses 23,000 kilowatt hours per person. In Brazil, the average person in Brazil uses about 2,600 kilowatt hours per person. Please help me find Nigeria. Nigeria is here. The average person in Nigeria uses 361 kilowatt hours per person. In fact, here we were being generous because we based this on 7,000 megawatts of theoretical capacity. Only 5,000 megawatts is used. We only have the ability to use 5,000 megawatts. So here is Nigeria. Let's look for some other countries. Who is in Nigeria's class? We're in the same class with Sudan, people that are in war. We're in the same category with Niger. Where is South Africa? South Africa is somewhere here. So while ours is 361, South Africa is 4,000, almost 4,200. The average South African has about over 10 times the amount of power we have access to. South Africa has 55 million people, and we have 5,000 megawatts. South Africa has 1,000 megawatts per million people. If we had 1,000 megawatts per million people, we would need 200,000 megawatts of power, called bold. Because we've said we need 17,000 megawatts. If we had just as much power as South Africa, our need is 200,000. So we're saying in 4 years we want to do 17,000. And 17,000 in 4 years would be more than all the power that we've been able to generate since this ambitious. But guess what? Egypt just did it. Last year, Egypt in 27 months put in 14,500 megawatts of power. In 27 months under Assisi. So here's where we started. So our goal was, Nigeria shouldn't be here. This is the global average. The global average is 3,651. So around the world, if you look at all the power usage, the average is about 3,125. So we said, look, we can't attempt to go as far as South Africa. It's too far, it's too much. We can't do 200,000 megawatts. But let's make sure we at least get to at least 40% of the global average. That's where the 17,000 megawatts come from. Can we do it? The answer is yes. So we looked at other countries that have done it. We looked at China. China, by 1990, this is where their power generation was. This is 1990. You see how China's graph goes up. So China did some things. They told themselves we are too backward. We need to get things done. And so they made a few changes. Today China has 1.5 million megawatts. We have 5,000. Okay? So we have 7,000 theoretical generation capacity. And one of the things we noticed was that one of the ways that China was able to grow, so if you look at this graph, you see that somewhere around here, the graph starts going up. But what China did in around 1996 was they came up with something called the Power Sector Public-Private Partnership Law that allowed private businesses under the guidance of the government to get involved in the power sector. And China, for a long period, was building over 60,000 megawatts per year of power. So we know it can be done. And I just gave you the example of Egypt. where they put in 14,500 megawatts in just 27 months. We're saying we want to do 17,000 megawatts in 4 years. So our power sector plans are to add 17,000 megawatts of power. Today, we're at 361 kilowatt hours per capita. Again, this is average power use per person. In the future, when we add these 17,000 megawatts, we expect that Nigeria will have about 1,250 kilowatt hours per person. We would have almost increased that close to about 4 times. We would still, in the future, and our future being 4 years after Sowore's first term, we would still be lower than Brazil. We would still be only about a quarter of South Africa, but we would be roughly 40% of the global average, which is where we said at a minimum we must get to in 4 years. If we are able to do that, so remember I told you that when you look at the economy of countries, the GDP, the economy of countries per person, and you look at their power use, it's a straight line. The more power you have, the richer you are. This is where Nigeria is. Now, when we do what we want to do, so you see this here, in economic terms, it just means every kilowatt hour of power generates about $4.3. Why? Because if you have power, you are more productive. If you have power as a student, the more power you have, the more you can study. At work, when power goes off, what do people do? If it's an industry that requires power, it's either everybody walks out and waits until power gets restored. So an economy with power is an economy that powers itself, period. So our expectation, now we don't make any claims about this, but if we move from here to here, what it means potentially is that by doing nothing other than providing 17,000 megawatts, we could potentially move Nigeria's economy by up to $1 to $2 trillion in addition to where we are today, which is about $400 billion. We could, just by providing that level of power, potentially triple our economy. We make no claims about that. We don't claim that benefit here, but we know that it happens in the rest of the world. So our infrastructure plans are very simple. Our roads, Nigeria currently has 202,000 kilometers of roads that are dilapidated, not maintained. We want to double that and take it to over 400,000. It has the potential of creating almost 2 million jobs. Today we have about 3,600 kilometers of rail. We want to modernize the rail infrastructure, and we want to get to over 7,000. We want to double rail infrastructure and get to over 7,000 kilometers of roads in 4 years. That should be able to generate over 500,000 jobs in construction and in terms of all the work that's going on. Sowore has said it over and over again, that his goal is to turn Nigeria into a construction site. Over the next 4 years, there will be over 3 million Nigerians doing nothing but being engaged in the construction industry. Building roads, building rail systems, housing, 17 million housing units. That's the deficit. If there are about 5 people living in a house, that's housing for almost 85 million people. Building those homes and all the work that goes into that will employ over 700,000 people. Drinking water, only about 30% of Nigeria gets today potable water. We want to double that over a 4-year time frame. So, and then sewage treatment. Many of us don't even know what sewage treatment plants are. That is where you take the water you flush and you treat it before you send it down to a lake, a river, or a stream. We plan to begin to do that as well. So over 4 years, our plan will require about $485 billion, and it will create, just our infrastructure plan. We have said we're going to create over 5 million jobs. Just infrastructure alone will take us to close to, well over 3 million, close to 4 million jobs. So we want to double our rail and road infrastructure. Those who think it's ambitious, guess what? Here is Nigeria today. We have about 200,000 kilometers of road. You know what that means? It means for every square mile of the country, we have only 0.57 roads. You know what South Africa has? 1.59, almost 3 times what we have. If you look at rail, we have 3,000, just about 3.5 1,000 kilometers of rail. That's 0.01 kilometers per square mile. That is how planners think about your infrastructure. South Africa has 4 times what we have. Our goal is to get to about half of where South Africa is over the next 4-year time frame. Why are we picking South Africa? You must pick. We don't want to go beyond Africa. But we also, at a minimum, must set for ourselves achievable targets, but we must also have, thank you very much. So we must set achievable targets, but we must also have what we call peer economies. So one of the things we're doing was we were saying, well, what are our peer economies? We're not trying to become the United States in 4 years, but at least we should be able to get to half or 1/10 of where South Africa is. We should be able to beat Ghana. We should be able to do what Rwanda is doing. So every now and again you might see us compare what we're doing to other countries. One, it is to make sure that we're being realistic in our plans. But secondly, it is also to remind ourselves that these things are possible. In the housing sector, we've already talked about the fact that we want to build about 17 million new units. Sowore has been very clear about the plan. The plan is that the average Nigerian will be able to access up to 2 million naira in loans, payable over 20 years. It means that no Nigerian that accesses these loans will have to pay more than 20,000 naira per month. That is part of why our minimum wage, our living wage, is 100,000. That out of the 100,000 living wage, if you're paying 20% of that, maximum for housing, it still leaves you about 80% to get on with the rest of your life. So every Nigerian under our plan will be guaranteed up to 2 million naira in loans. And then we're going to establish something called the Real Estate Investment Trust. The government of Nigeria owns all the land. So the idea is, we know that for these 17 million units, we need about 8.5 million acres of land. Nigeria has about 250 million acres. We will allocate about 8.5 million acres to this project. And we will monetize that and invest that into, as the seed fund, the beginning, the investment into this real estate investment trust, and then we'll invite the private sector to partner with us in that as well. Living wage, we don't call it a minimum wage, it's a living wage. Here's where we started. So for those who wonder, how did you come up with these numbers? We looked at the entire Nigerian civil service. We looked at people from grade level 1 to grade level 17. A grade level 1 person, every grade has tips. So the average payment in grade level 1 is about 20,000. The average payment in grade level 12 is 99,000. So only grade levels 1 to 12 in the civil service are below 100,000. So what we did was we said, what is the deficit? What is the difference between this and what we believe is the living wage of the 100,000? We identified that deficit, and then we looked at what percentage of the civil service was in these categories. We found out that of the 900,000 validated employees in the federal civil service, that about 67% of them, almost 70%, so about 70,000 people fall into this. Our estimation is that we'll need about $1.4 billion in addition to make those payments, which would be about 490 billion added to our budget. We expect it to actually boost the economy. If I give people that already have 10 homes an additional 100,000, they will spray it within 1 minute at an OMA party. If I give a worker that was earning 20,000 naira, an additional 80,000 naira, what's he going to do? He's going straight to the market to buy a few more pieces of meat, which means the person who has a poultry is going to have to have more chicks, more goats, maybe more cows. He will go straight and start buying more clothes for his children, which means the tailor gets to work, which means the person selling fabrics gets to basically gets more revenues, right? It means that they can now afford maybe to go to a school of their choice, which means that there's a school somewhere that will get an additional student, which means there might be another teacher somewhere that's potentially going to get hired. So we believe this is a stimulus. It's actually going to stimulate the economy. So in terms of our economic programs, that's the E part of SUSCIBE. The plan is to create over 5 million jobs, and when you see what the breakdown of those jobs are, We want to leverage technology for growth. She already talked about the silent T at the end of Spicer Heat. Every single program we have, from security to tourism, has technology inside of it. So when you look at our plan, you may not see a separate sector called technology. But in security, we plan to use drones, for example, to surveil what is going on in the Boko Haram areas. We plan to use intelligence to make sure that we stop corruption, cashless systems, putting the entire Corporate Affairs Commission database online, things like that. Integrating, as Sowore very brilliantly answered during the debates when people were asking where the data was. Nigeria already has a lot of data. Nigeria has more data probably than any other country. We have a BVN that is biometric. We have a voter's ID card that is biometric. We have a national ID card for those who have it that is biometric. If you own, we have a passport for those who travel that's biometric. But if you speak on a cell phone, and almost every Nigerian does, we also have biometric level information about you. No other country has that level of information. If you try that in other countries, you would have issues with privacy. But clearly we don't, those aren't issues here. But we have all that data. If we have all that data, we should be leveraging it to grow our businesses. So the 3 planks of our economic program is leverage technology for growth, promote small businesses, strengthen the manufacturing sector. Under leveraging technology, we want Nigeria to be the hub of software development. We want it to be the hub of ICT, not just in Africa, but around the world. Nigerians are doing this in other countries. There's no reason why we cannot create the enabling environment here. Our power plan will help this. So our plan for power is not to build one big plant and put it on one national grid. It's going to be decentralized. The 17,000 will be 500 here, 1,000 there. And the way we prioritize where we build is where the ICT center is going to be. We're going to build hubs. We're going to build innovation centers. So that's the plan that we have as far as technology is concerned. We're going to promote small businesses. It's not big companies that create jobs. It's many millions of small businesses. If any of you has an idea today, how are you going to get money to start? Nobody's going to give you capital unless you happen to have a wealthy parent. And most times when you have a wealthy parent, you don't even bother about starting a new company. You're just waiting for them to hand over their own company to you. So our plan is to create small businesses. We're going to develop something we call a Small Business Innovation Fund. We're going to put seed capital. Non-equity means the government wants nothing back in return except for, so we know it's risky, but just a small subset of businesses that qualify. The ideas are innovative. They're trying to do some new, remarkable things, develop apps where everybody's afraid to touch you with a 10-foot pole. Some of those businesses are going to be supported. We're going to be providing training for small businesses, and a new bureau for small business enterprises, whose job will be to do nothing than to drive growth, help people build small businesses and provide them with training to do that. And then there'll be lots of incentives to support that. And then the manufacturing sector. We want to boost manufacturing in this country. If you think about it this way, in many industries, most of what you use in manufacturing is power. So if you are in China, your power cost is about 4 or 5 cents per kilowatt hour. If you're in Nigeria, your cost is 20 cents a kilowatt hour. Why? Because you have to use your diesel generator to be supplying power. Before you even produce the product, your cost is already almost 100% more than the guy from China, because we don't have power. So we're going to change that with our plans. And then you can't strengthen manufacturing if you don't tackle corruption, so we're going to be opportunity there. Nigeria has over 20 million cows. Those cows, the reason why you see all that fighting is because Boko Haram has closed off. Normally, Nigeria's cows spend the rainy seasons, they spend the dry season in the north, and then move towards here, they spend the rainy seasons in the north, and then move towards here in the dry season in the north. But now, 20 million cows cannot go towards the northeast because of Boko Haram. You take your cows to Taraba, Bauchi, Yobe, Adamawa, you have just donated your herd to Boko Haram. You take your cows to the northwest, you have just donated your cows to bandits in the northwest. So that's almost 30% of Nigeria they can't go to. Part of what is happening is there is more conflict between growing herds of cows And the fact that where farmers didn't used to see them before, now you're bumping into farmers everywhere because it's shrunk. Add to that climate change that is reducing yields, reducing water. So for us, it's an opportunity. We need to move these cows into ranches. We estimate that we will need about 2.5 million acres of ranch land. We're going to create those in 5 hydrologic zones that have natural sources of water. And we believe it can generate about 250,000 jobs. How? There will be about 10 cows per acre. And each 10 acres, we will allocate to one person to manage. That means we have 250,000 plots, allocations. That's 250,000 jobs, first order jobs. Their job is to do the planting of the grass, as the cows eat it, pack up the shit, or the manure, if I'm being linguistically correct. But then guess what? That cow manure from 20 million cows, when they are packed together, can generate 1,000 megawatts of power. So part of our power plan is to actually use that. That's what people do. In fact, part of what I do in my job, where I work, is to turn people's cow manure into power. So it's easy. That people do that all the time. And now we've not even talked about other industries. Leather, tanning, something we call rendering. And then if I have 250,000 people working somewhere, their families alone, 3-4 people, it means we will have probably over 1 million people in those ranches. Now we need schools. Now we need security. Now we need food. Now we need lodging. We need houses. You've just created another boost to the economy around those. So we think there's opportunity there. Healthcare, today only 30 million Nigerians are covered. We want to cover all Nigerians. They are covered under NHIS, only 30 million. We want to cover everybody else. So what we've set aside, and Sowore was very, very particular about this, his charge to us was all Nigerians must be covered. So we've set aside, in addition to the health budget, an allocation of 2,000 naira per person. 200 million people, that means 400 billion we've set aside. Normally only about 10% of the people fall sick. So if we set aside 2,000 per person, it means the average Nigerian, whether you have a job or not, you have access to almost 20,000 naira per year to see a doctor, to get basic drugs for a mother who are just giving birth, antenatal care and things like that. So every Nigerian is going to be covered. We call it universal basic health coverage because it's not comprehensive, but we believe we have to start somewhere. We can't, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation, period. And then we plan to add, on day one, 160,000 new jobs. So the goal, the charge from Sowore was how do we cover them? The plan we came up with that was sustainable and that was self-sufficient was to have at least 200 new healthcare workers per local government area, 774 local government areas. That gives you about 160,000 new jobs in healthcare. Agriculture, the plan from day one is day one, 774,000 new jobs minimum. We're going to create 1,000 agricultural entrepreneurs in each local government area. Whatever that area, if it's the riverine areas, if it is agriculture, if it is horticulture, we'll support that. So the idea is, and it's not all farming jobs. There are some jobs that is processing, so it's basically anything in the agricultural industry. We'll enable that, we'll provide them with training. For 1 year, we will support them with about 50,000 naira per month because it takes time to set up a farm. It takes time for you to actually start growing things back. We're not giving the money to them, it's a loan. We're going to get it back eventually, but the federal government will begin to do things like, if I have 774,000 people buying something together, that is a massive group of people. It gives you supply, it gives you purchasing power, the ability to get good deals. It allows them maybe to share tractors rather than have each person use a tractor. So the idea is to become extremely, extremely involved in making sure that these work. Tourism is important. We believe it's, right now Nigeria is exporting its culture. There is no place you go to where people aren't listening to Wizkid, aren't listening to Tiwa Savage, are not watching Nollywood. We are rich in culture. Our diversity is actually a strength, but nobody wants to come back. Even those of us that are Nigerians, that are overseas, there are many Nigerians who are afraid to come back to their own country. If our own people don't want to come back to their own country, how much more people that are not Nigerians, but they want to come, right? If the 20 million people in Nigeria, just the ones that are our citizens, If only 1,000 of them came, that is about 20 billion. If they only spent 1,000 naira, that is 20 billion. And you know they will not come here and spend 1,000 naira. Right? They will not spend 1,000 naira. So there's a lot of opportunity that we're looking at if we can actually grow tourism. So in terms of the summary of projects and costs, we want to have a responsible government. Again, Sowore's charge to us was security, self-sufficiency, and sustainability. So we create about 5 million jobs, and this is where all those jobs are coming from. And this is the minimum because we've not counted those secondary other jobs that are going to be created as well. This is the additional amount of cost. So not all these jobs add to the federal government's cost. So jobs in road infrastructure, who is paying for it? It is wherever those construction companies are that are hiring the workers that are doing that. All that the federal government is doing in this case is getting either providing the capital or helping to ensure that we bring in people that can help provide the capital. So that's our project. So where's the money coming from? 500 billion over 5 years, almost, it means we're trying to spend about a little over $100 billion a year. So where's the money coming from? One is we'll reduce wastage. It might be a little hard to see, but what I have here is the millions of dollars you use to construct 1 kilometer of road. This here is the Bible Capital Township Road. These numbers are from the World Bank, by the way. It cost them about so that's about $3.7 million per kilometer for that road. The Lekki Ekpe Expressway cost them about $5.9 million per kilometer. The world average is 1.4. So you know where the rest of that money is going to. It is waste. If we're building roads, or if you are building roads for the Nigerian government under a Sowore government, guess which cost you are going to be providing those roads at? It cannot and should not exist a global average. Okay? So we can reduce wastage. We can boost revenue collection. What you have here are Lagos's revenue numbers. So the Sowore government is not going to increase taxes, but we're going to make sure that those who gain the most from Nigeria are going to give back to Nigeria. We're not going to allow a situation where somebody gives 10 million and you get revenue workers to look the other way when you should actually be paying over about $1 billion, and you give them 10 million and everybody looks the other way. The Sowore government will not do that. Lagos was making about 1.1 billion per month. Today, Lagos makes about 34 billion per month in internally generated revenue. In fact, Ambode just gave a budget of almost 900 billion. Nigeria's budget is about 9 trillion, which means the budget of Lagos alone is about 10% of the Nigerian budget. So we know that if you are serious about revenue collection, especially from the big boys and the big girls that fleece this country dry and refuse to give back, we know that one of the countries that has used public-private partnerships the most is actually private partnerships in over 13,000 projects. So we'll leverage that, but our concern is going to be to ensure that the Nigerian people are not shortchanged in any way. Where's the money coming from? There's 3 ways, as I told you. We want to get close to about $100 billion a year. $5 to $6 billion of that is going to come from tackling corruption. Today we know that about 20% of our budget is consumed. 25 billion, 30 billion budget, that's $5 to $6 billion a year. We'll close that right away. People who need to be in jail will be in jail. People who need to be going to court and getting prosecuted for their crimes will be getting prosecuted for their crimes. But this is what you would call in economics low-hanging fruit. The next place is revenue collection. I showed you the example of Lagos. So today, tax collections in Nigeria, revenue, is only about 6%. The sub-Saharan average of all the countries around us is actually higher. It's about 16%. So we'll make sure that, again, not one single cent in new taxes, but making sure we collect what is already on the books. What will that do? It will take our budget from 25 billion, take our revenues rather, and we intend to have a balanced budget on an annual basis. Is the reason why I might interest. We're going to boost that by another 50 to 60 billion, so we're already close to 70. And then the balance of what we need to do, we can work with public-private partnerships, making sure that the policies of a Sowore government protect the Nigerian people. The Chinese have been able to do it.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that we're being able to see the human face of the plan of the Sowore plan, as far as business is concerned, as far as the Spicer heat is concerned. And let me do a little bit of, let me paint a little bit of picture here on what has been happening before, because from what you've heard now, it's like music to the ears, it's rhythmic.
And extortion that they carry out. So how do you expect such a civil servant or civil service to function, in accordance with, your dreams as a leader? That's why we're proposing a living wage, so that we don't have to deal with all of those encumbrances of people being hungry and not being able to give their best. That is first. And of course, the rest of it is ensuring that the rules are respected, of punctuality, of capacity, of discipline. Because that's why they are called civil servants in the first place. It's because they are supposed to serve the public. But the civil servants we have in Nigeria today, they are not civil and they are not serving anybody. That's the truth. And they set to bring about a government that can ensure that there's some kind of civility is restored to that chaotic place that will not happen. On the issue of building hubs, there are a lot of ways that government can build hubs. You don't have to construct physical hubs. But one question you should ask yourself is, would Andela be doing better if Nigeria had electricity? Can you compete better? And if it does, who builds electricity? Most countries around the world, the government is in charge of those kind of infrastructure. And government can also give you land. Government can give you, interest-free loans. In the US, a lot of, even the grants that we get as NGOs, they somehow come from government in a way, because when you're doing good, when you're a foundation, the government said, don't pay me taxes. So the taxes we are not paying enables you to give more grants to people. If government were to, charge taxes on every NGO foundation that is out there, then so many of this, foundation funding that we get will not come to us, because they will be diverted towards taxes. So that's how government functions. We understand how government should function. I don't think it will be necessary to build hubs, but government can give you land. Government can give you grants. There can be a technological, pot of money somewhere put aside by the Nigerian government to create innovation, to ginger the innovative sector. And the moment that happens, government is building, while individuals are operating within enabling environments that will make them very creative and innovative. And there's no country that can afford to overlook that. We had that same argument in some of our interviews with other candidates. And we've been able to make it very clear. We discovered that even candidates that introduced data collection did not know that data processing and analysis was necessary. But they brag about it. They say, I'm the one who introduced how to collect data. But what do you do with the data? So government is the one that can collect data, but individuals like NGOs, like yours, can process data, can analyze data for public good. So what am I trying to say is that when there's good government in town, the partnership between that government and every other person that is doing good becomes of government bureaucracy as an impediment to progress and creativity. I hope I answered that question well enough.
Okay, there's another question. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm the crew. My question was this.
Regard how certain documentation about revenue is transferred from person to person, that not everybody has access to them if they are not up to that clearance level, and a lot of tech people at the back. We talked about the use of blockchain technology. It's not that it will solve all the problems, but it can help you with tracking revenue. The TSA that they have could have worked, But the moment Buhari came, because of the corrupt nature of the people that brought him, they started exempting several agencies of God. So over 5 to 10 accounts are already exempted from the NNPC. The custom has its own exemption. I heard that MP has its own exemption. So by the time they exempted all the big revenue agencies, TSA is empty. You know, and then you have to think about Buhari as a person who has little upstairs, with due respect to the man, and then has no energy or the ability. You know, a mediocre leader who don't understand how to even track or monitor or supervise his ministers, or who doesn't even have meetings with them, cannot understand how his country is operating. As you understand, there's also a medical dimension to it, known as dementia. So the man forgets almost everything that's going on around him. How do you expect such a person to fight corruption? So it's part of the reason why the argument is also about the soundness of head and body in this particular election, even though people are speaking in hushed tones about them. So the next, of course, is enforcement. There are a lot of laws that we can enforce, and that's where the issue of party membership comes in. The moment you start separating who can be touched with enforcement from those who can't, based on their party membership cards, then you have destroyed your anti-corruption fight. And that is why Buhari's own failed spectacularly. You know, each time even his own people are found, it takes forever to clamp down on them. Look at the time they found the grass cutter and when they are prosecuting. The only reason why they are prosecuting Mr. Grass Cutter is because it's politically expedient. Otherwise, they are not interested. It's because of the Onohen, the CGN, scandal, that they decided that, okay, let's look for somebody on our side to show to the public that we are not biased, and they went and brought the grass cutter. There are bigger crimes, corruption-wise, going on in the Buhari regime, which we have covered, and they haven't touched, and they will never touch because it suits their own agenda. I was saying one day, I think we did a report about the lady at the MPA, what's her name? Adiza, Bala Usman's daughter. And she wrote that she wants to sue Sahara reporters. And then she got foreign lawyers to write Sahara reporters that they will sue us. And I said to myself, they said you are corrupt. You say you are not corrupt. Then you go and hire foreign lawyers to protect your reputation. Why are you going to pay the foreign lawyers? Is it not true corruption? There's no lawyer in America that will take less than $600 for you per hour. So the letter she wrote to me is already a $10,000 letter. Where did you get the money from, Hadiza? Do you have a cocoa farm? Or are you growing? So this is how they don't understand that, this is how you get yourself caught up in the whole corruption. It's clear that she's using public money to harass a media company. And that shows also that you don't even believe in our own, court system. Otherwise, we wrote a story against you in Nigeria. Why go to America to look for a lawyer? Go to a judge here and sue so that we resolve it locally. But I'm just explaining to you how these corrupt systems work. The last thing is consequences. If corrupt people are not punished as they should, forget about fighting corruption. And they have been able to demonstrate that they are incapable. Our justice system is incapable of dealing with very powerful people. And you cannot, I think a senator was jailed, and he is also running for Senate, and he's also on the campaign council of President Buhari, that's Senator Dari. He's supposed to be in jail. There was a deputy governor in Adamawa, was a governor, who was sentenced to prison, and the prison service cannot find him in prison. We are still looking for him. How can you sentence somebody to prison and he's on vacation from prison? That's where, but if it is to jail somebody who stole a governor's phone, 17 years, the man will rot there. So these are the 4 basic areas where we close our eyes and fight corruption with. But most importantly, leveraging on technology. The moment your money doesn't get in the pocket of a thief, your problem is less. When they get the money, it's difficult to retrieve. Even in America, the moment people steal a lot of money, what they call is the blue collar or white collar crimes, and it's very difficult to get because they will hire the most powerful lawyers, they will fight it, At the end of the day, take half, you take half, everybody goes to sleep. Make sure that thieves, there are policies in place that don't allow thieves to have access to, especially large sums of money. And if they do, make sure that you collect your thing back or you prevent them from moving them out before it's too late.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together. We start making it possible to focus more on why we are here, which is making Nigeria's economy consequential. Some criteria. Have you looked at this, holistically enough to say what are the things that people need to know? When things begin to go wrong, how will they be able to understand it, and how will they be able to engage?
Thank you very much for that question. So one of the first things we did, even before coming up with manifestos and policies, was a conversation around how do we speak truth to power? Not just to the power that exists now, but to the power that will exist when, by the grace of God and by the will of the Nigerian people, the change, the true positive transformative change that we're looking for comes in. So we decided to do two things. The first one was to start with a movement. One of the problems we have in this country is there is no ideology. I've made this case before and I'll make it again. If I go to the US, if anybody goes to the US and you hear that somebody is a Democrat, without meeting that person, without knowing that person, I can tell you about 90% of what that person believes about God for anybody else. That's the truth. That's what we believe. That's what he told us to do. So the reality is, the movement continues. The movement is our ideological basis, and it is our movement that then became the basis for this manifesto. Now, the second thing that he requested for, that's here, is that if somebody doesn't make commitments, then you can't hold them accountable. We've told you how many jobs we intend to create. If Sowore fails to create 5 million jobs in 4 years, many of us will not vote for him again. So he has made what he wants to do public. He has told us that he wants to put in 17,000 megawatts of power. We can hold him accountable. He has told us that he will pursue corruption without fear or favor. We can hold him accountable. He has told us he wants to create 1,000 agricultural entrepreneurs in 774 local government areas, and after 4 years, we can ask him, where are those 774,000 entrepreneurs? He has told us he wants to create ranches. At the end of 5 years, we can find out, at the end of 4 years, we can ask him, where are the ranches? So part of what we are here to do today, part of the reason why Sowore and all of us that are in the movement are comfortable providing these numbers, is because we want Nigerians to hold us accountable. Starting with him.
And what is absolutism? This is capitalist. This is that. There's nothing that is anything. You understand? Does it work? Those are the questions you need to ask. Besides, what is technology? We need not be afraid that it's going to take our jobs. We should ask ourselves, the simplest form or definition of technology is the state of human knowledge. In other words, as the state of human knowledge improves on the government side, also your state of mind improves, because you'll be thinking of, where do I find myself on this? And based on the leadership example that they have put down, they are telling you that they are creating a platform upon which you can plug yourself into. In other words, you are relevant in this kind of arrangement. Nobody is going to be talking over your head. They are creating a platform that you can find expression through. So when they say creation of jobs, it means creation of opportunities robust enough to give you comfort enough to express yourself. And that's what we've heard. I'm just translating in English. Yes, sir, let's take a question from this side.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Timmy January. My question goes those because I'm from the diaspora, and I'm very particular about this question because these are never been mentioned on the campaign trail, particularly because our campaign is all about bringing new change in Nigeria. So my question is, what are the plans for the diasporans in breaking the entry barrier into Nigeria? Because many of us want to come back home. We love our country. We only went there for greener pastures. So what is the plan of the campaign in trying to bring back all Nigerians, the brain drain, the money and everything that we've taken away? Thank you.
Very good question. Thank you so much. When we were doing our research on how much Nigeria makes annually, we discovered that when the prices of oil fell a few years ago, the remittance into Nigeria was bigger than the oil received into from the Nigerian government for several years. So the diasporans are bringing in over $50 billion. All our tax receipts combined together is around $30-something billion. So the diaspora community is Nigeria's new oil, if not gold. But the problem is that the Nigerian government don't have any plans or respect for the diaspora community. That is why we are still even arguing about whether they can vote or not vote at this time. And by the way, if diasporans were to be allowed to vote in this election, we would have stopped campaigning a long time ago. But with regards to barrier to entry, the reason we don't have too much on what we do for diasporans is because people already accuse us as, the diaspora party. And there's some kind of tension between people at home and people who come from, because you're always acting as if you know too much, and people don't like that. And we don't want to be in their face saying or making them feel like, oh, we're better than them. But the Indian model is what we have looked at, how they brought home their doctors, their scientists. It was that they created steps by which they can come back home. And I said to you, the first step is to have a functioning airport. I'm telling you, nothing discourages you more in this country than to arrive at the airport and know that this place, I'm sorry to use the French word, is fucked up. And as you are entering, it's muggy, it's smelly, the immigration officers, customs, everybody's like trying to put hand into your pocket. The moment you get out of the place, you don't want to come back anymore. If you have the luck or bad luck for bringing your children, and they start telling you, Daddy, is this your country? Is this really your country? That one is another mental torture for you. But the other thing is also to reintegrate them in the area of housing. But if they don't have schools that they can send their children to, if they can't have fine hospitals they can go to if they fall sick, even for a few days, there's no diaspora that is coming back. And one thing I can tell you categorically in ending is that most diasporas who went for greener pastures are stuck with brownish pastures now. They are in a hurry to come back home. They can't wait to come back home. People in diaspora are even more desperate to have a better Nigeria. And they just can't wait for Take It Back and AAC to win the election in 4 days. And we have to thank you guys very much in diaspora. We know you're watching us, and you can't wait to come back to your country. As we said to you the last time, give us a chance. We're going to prepare a home for you to return to. And that's a promise. Thank you. I think this, do you have anything to add? No, not at all.
Just only one. They wash chemicals. Those chemicals they wash, it goes into the ground. And our water, most of the people do borehole. Nobody controls them. There's no sanitization on all these things. So they continue drinking. Gradually, in another 10, 15 years, they continue dying. Their organs started having problems. When it comes to houses, building houses, I can see that we have face me and face you. There's no hygienic. What can we do to solve all these problems? Because there are things that nobody can take cognizance to, but gradually it's killing our people. So what is your plan towards this?
I wanted to ask Dr. Malcolm to to answer the question because I want to go to the back too and do what you guys are doing.
All right, thanks. So, I'll just repeat your question. So the first one is, you have hospitals, you have places where diseases are being treated, they wash things, generate water, and it's just released into places where people living around, especially children.
Because sorry sir, because like the Chinese now, they are
Sure.
washing those things in our
That's right.
farmland.
And then industries, okay, and then industries and then housing. So there are two key things that I think are related to your question, and they're both policy related things. So the first one is that one of the biggest problems we have in this country is that the laws on the books are not respected. Guess what? There are actually laws that prohibit factories from releasing toxic materials to the environment. Effluent. Are those laws respected? The answer is no. Now, but there's another problem. Another problem is that if you tell me not to release effluents to the environment, then one of the things that you as the government should provide is the infrastructure, gutters, sewer systems, pipes buried under the ground, so that from each of those factories, as they flush or wash, nobody actually sees it physically. It goes into pipes, okay, and they have collection systems. So what you will notice is that in our plan, in our infrastructure plan, we have something called sewage. Sewage is different from drinking water treatment. So in most societies, you have two pipes going into every house and every factory. There's one pipe bringing clean water from a drinking water treatment plant. There's another pipe taking sewage. And sewage is all these effluents and waste. So we, in our infrastructure plan, if you go to our infrastructure plan, we actually have, I think if you move towards the back, there's a table, keep advancing, go back. Stop here. So you see this right here, this sewage, where we plan to have as many as almost 100,000 jobs. So this is intended to deal with that problem. So what we intend to do with these sewage treatment plants is to provide those pipes and the connection systems to make sure that hospitals are not releasing water into the streets. They are putting it into pipes that will take them to a treatment plant. That factories are doing the same thing. And then you mentioned something about housing. We want a country where there's nothing wrong with face me and face you housing. But we think every Nigerian deserves a reasonable, affordable, and comfortable home. And that is why we have a plan for housing that guarantees, so our plan is to build 17 million housing units. The housing deficit in this country, the amount of housing that is not available to make sure that each of our people is in a comfortable, decent, affordable home. There are 17 million of those units. So of the 200 million Nigerians that are here, if in each house you have about 5 people, that's about 85 million Nigerians that could move away from a face me, I face you somewhere else. What is stopping them from doing that? They don't have the funds to do so. So our plan guarantees that everybody, every Nigerian that has a job, every Nigerian that is desirous of having a home, will be able to